Zygmunt Bauman's Intimations of Postmodernity is a collection of essays that explores the social, political, and cultural changes that have come with the shift from modernity to postmodernity. He looks at how people's relationship with society, knowledge, morality, and identity are affected in this new postmodern condition. Unlike modernity, which focused on order, progress, control, and planning, postmodernity is marked by uncertainty, flexibility, and the breakdown of stable structures. Bauman's writing explores what it means to live in a world where certainty is gone and where individuals are left to find their own meaning and responsibility. The book begins by looking at how postmodernity changes the way we think about power and society. In the modern era, there was a strong belief in rational planning and universal progress. And institutions aimed to create order and fix social problems. But in the postmodern era, he says this kind of trust in universal solutions is gone. Institutions have become more fragmented, and there is less faith in experts and long term planning. People now live in a more privatized world where they are expected to take care of themselves without relying on stable systems. Bauman suggests that in postmodernity, politics becomes more about individual fears and desires rather than collective visions of the future. In the early chapters, Bauman talks about postmodern ethics. He argues that the postmodern condition challenges traditional ideas of morality. In modernity, ethics was often seen as something fixed and universal, a set of rules based on reason. But in postmodernity, such certainty is no longer possible. Instead of relying on moral code, individuals must now take personal responsibility for their actions in a world where moral choices are unclear. Bauman says this is both frightening and freeing. Without clear rules, people must decide for themselves what is right or wrong. This creates anxiety but also gives space for a more personal and human approach to morality, one based on empathy rather than abstract rules. Another major theme in the book is the change in how people relate to knowledge. In the modern world, knowledge was seen as a tool for control and progress. Science was expected to explain everything and help build a better future. But in postmodernity, people become more skeptical of grand explanations or master narratives. They no longer fully trust that science or reason can solve all problems. Instead, knowledge becomes fragmented. Different viewpoints exist, becomes more personal or local. Bauman warns that this can lead to confusion and relativism, but he also says it opens up space for new ideas and greater openness to difference. Bauman also talks about identity and how it changes in the postmodern world. In modernity, people's identities were often shaped by the roles in society, their job, class, religion, or nation. These roles gave people a clear sense of who they were. But in postmodernity, these traditional structures became weaker. Identity becomes more flexible and changed. People are encouraged to choose who they want to be, to create their own life story, often through consumption and lifestyle choices. But this freedom also brings insecurity. Without stable roles or shared values, people may feel lost or pressured to constantly reinvent themselves. That identity in the postmodern world is no longer something we inherit, it is something we must perform and maintain all the time. In one of the central essays, Bauman discusses postmodern art and culture. He says that modern art tried to challenge reality and speak deep truths. It had a serious it had a serious mission, but postmodern art plays with images, styles, and meanings. It often mixes the old with the new, the serious with the ironic. There is no longer a belief that art can reveal some deep truth. Instead, it reflects a world that is fast moving, ironic, and full of surface appearances. Bauman connects this to consumer culture, where everything, even identity and meaning, becomes something to be bought, sold, or displayed. Another chapter explores how postmodernity changes the idea of utopia, the dream of a better society. In modernity, people believed they could reason and planning. Utopias inspired revolutions, reforms, and social movements. But in the postmodern world, Bauman says utopian thinking becomes weaker. People no longer believe in big unified visions of a perfect society. They focus instead on personal happiness or survival in the present. This loss of utopia can lead to apathy or acceptance of injustice. Without dreams of change, society may simply maintain the status quo. Bauman pays attention to how power and control operate differently in postmodern times. In modernity, power was often direct and visible through laws, institutions, and force. But in postmodernity, power becomes more invisible and subtle. Instead of being forced, people are encouraged to control themselves, to follow norms, chase success, and consume the right products. Surveillance becomes internalized. People discipline themselves because someone tells them to, but because they want to fit in, succeed, or to be admired. Bauman connects this to Foucault's idea of modern disciplinary power and suggests that in postmodernity, this power becomes even more spread out and flexible. Bauman also looks at the idea of exile and marginality. He says that modern societies created outsiders, people who do not fit the plan, like criminals, the poor, or the mentally ill. These people were often hidden away or fixed. In postmodern society, the figure of the outsider remains but changes. But now, people may become outsiders simply by failing to keep up, by losing a job, falling into debt, or not adapting quickly enough. Marginality becomes more fluid and widespread. The fear of becoming an outsider becomes part of everyday life, making people anxious and constantly trying to protect. The final essay returns to the question of responsibility. Even though postmodernity takes away many of the old rules and structures, it does not take away the need for ethics. It makes ethics more important because we can no longer rely on universal rules. We must become more aware of our actions and how they affect others. Bauman says we need a postmodern ethics of responsibility, not based on duty or rules, but on care, empathy, and attention to the